America, the greatest country on earth. What does it mean to be a citizen of America? What are the characteristics of being a good citizen? Who are good citizens? Do good citizens save cats from burning buildings? Or do they dedicate their lives to teaching about citizenship? Does being a good citizen mean storming the beaches of Normandy? Do good citizens stand up for what they believe in? Is being a good citizen being well-read and informed about the issues?
Hi, Andy.
These questions and more will be answered in a very special interview with a very special person. How's it going? I'm Greg.
Hi, Greg. I'm Eric Becker.
So I was hoping I could ask you a few questions about citizenship.
Be my pleasure.
So I guess my first question is, are you in fact a U.S. citizen?
I am a U.S. citizen, born in Baltimore in 1962. I hold a valid driver's license for the state of Maryland, U.S. passport, and a birth certificate.
After confirming that my father was in fact a U.S. citizen, I had him take me to school on the issues of citizenship. My first question for you is, what is citizenship?
I think that citizenship is active participation, being a member of a democracy.
What other qualities of good citizenship would you say are important?
Well, I think the first thing is, let's expand a little bit beyond active involvement. I think that to be a good citizen, you need to be involved and aware of what's going on at the multiple levels within the community. So we start at the smallest level, which might be your neighborhood. You then go to a village or a town, a city, a state, a region, a country, and then ultimately being a citizen of the world. So being involved and understanding what the issues are in each of those levels would be part of the responsibilities and what it would take to be a good citizen.
Would you consider yourself a good citizen?
I would consider myself a good citizen. I vote and I am thoughtful about the issues in an election. And I've tried to be active in my community at a variety of different levels to ensure that there is justice and good functioning within our community. So that's something that I've been involved with.
One of the things that I asked Mr. Becker about was the importance of voting in citizenship. And very much like Ganesh, he had very strong views on the issue.
I think that voting is one of the most basic responsibilities for being a good citizen. But not just thoughtlessly voting, and that if the government, as an example, put a fine upon those who didn't vote, people would just show up, go in, and randomly push a button so that they didn't get fined. So it's not just voting, it means following an election, understanding the politicians and what their issues are, and maybe even raising your hand to be in an election and to sit for office or run for office. So I think that voting is, it's one of the principles of a healthy democracy is the numbers of people who are voting, although I would add to that, voting thoughtfully. Because what you don't want in a democracy is where the number of people voting gets to be so small as a percentage that then someone's able to really influence them and you know, perhaps you don't really have the right leadership. So I think voting is a responsibility, one of the core foundational responsibilities of being a good citizen.
Like everyone else in the class, I also asked my interviewees' views on illegal immigrants, especially their relation to voting.
Well, when we talk about being like a citizen of the world, where there's no formal recognition of being a citizen of the world, I think anywhere that you are, that you can be a good citizen. If you are a guest of another country, you can be, just like as you're a guest in someone's house, you can be a really good guest or not a great guest. So I think there are other things that one can do to be helpful and to be a good person within the context of the world, or if they are the guest of another country.
When asked about his own personal involvement with citizenship, Mr. Becker told a short anecdote.
We'll tell you one funny story of where being a good citizen can in fact backfire. Years and years ago, we lived in a community called Green Tree on Hooks Lane, and Hooks Lane was the connector between two major roads. And I noticed that people were flying up and down Hooks Lane every day, so much so that we nicknamed it Hooks Highway rather than Hooks Lane. They had a little sidewalk, and your mom would be pushing you in a baby stroller along, and I was so frustrated that people were flying by speeding. I thought it was so dangerous that I thought I would be an active citizen. So I pulled out a sheet of stationery and I wrote a letter to the Baltimore County Executive complaining about this dangerous situation. About 2 weeks later, I was caught in a speed trap myself on Hooks Lane, only to be followed a few days later by a letter from the county executive back to me saying that he appreciated my concern. He had forwarded it to the chief of police, who had set up a series of speed traps along there, and he gave me the statistics of how many people were caught in the speed trap, including me. So I thought that was pretty funny, both in terms of getting something going, which proves that even one person's voice can make something happen, and then falling prey to it as well.
Finally, Mr. Becker left us with some parting words on the threats to citizenship and democracy, and also told us a little bit about how he would form his own democracy.
I think that actually one of the great risks to democracy and one of the great risks to citizenship was written by Tocqueville many years ago when he came to the United States from France and studied democracy, and that is apathy. And there are lots of different reasons that can cause apathy. The first of which I think is affluence. I think that the richer that a nation becomes, the easier it is for people to not really understand what it was that made that nation great and what it was that their forefathers had done to achieve a level of freedom and democracy. And so that's the thing that I worry about the most, and I think is actually the root cause of people being disaffected, not as involved in their community, and that is, I think, one of the greatest risks to a democracy.
If you were stranded on a deserted island and you had to recreate your own type of government, your own type of society, start your own civilization, how would you structure and teach citizenship to your citizens?
I think that, like many things, you need to start with setting a really good example for the younger people in your society. And so I think the first way to teach citizenship is for the parents or the older people on the island that you're mentioning to demonstrate good citizenship and to set a good example. And the second way to do it, I think, is by encouraging that next generation to be actively involved in their community. And I think the way to do that is through a variety of different methods that could be public service, things like things that we have, like the Peace Corps, volunteering, getting involved in social issues or other issues in a community. I think that's a great way to engage people where they can see firsthand how a democracy works. And those would be the two things that I would do in order to teach good citizenship. Set a good example, and then make sure that that next generation had the opportunity and the obligation to participate in the society in a productive, positive way so that they could learn and see firsthand what it takes and how great it can be when a democracy works.
Anything else you want to tell? Is there anything else you want to tell me about citizenship or any of your other beliefs?
More rights for dogs. More rights for dogs.
So what did we learn from this average, everyday American citizen? That voting is the central right and responsibility of all citizens. We also learned that there are many different levels of citizenship, both at the local, state, national, and even global level. We also learned that one easy way to practice good citizenship besides voting is service, either to your country militarily, through community service, or even being a politician yourself. And obviously, the rights of dogs are important as well.